GM, Rainmaker fans, welcome to another episode of Make It Rain, presented by Metaverse HQ. I am the gentleman named Poopaloop. You can also call me Mike or Poop, whatever you prefer. I am sitting in today for Mr. Jake and Bake, who could not make it, and joined by the great JJ and Mr. Therec. Gentlemen, how are you doing today?
Good. Better after that dumpster fire last night. I mean,
Man.
it's like a bad hangover, right, guys?
Yeah, I'm so glad I missed watching that and sold off most of my cards into that because, good lord, there's two bad teams there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we talked about it going into that, right? Like, what do you do when you have these showdowns with bad teams, and anyone could be in the winning lineup? Most of us, I think, chose to sell, but we did have a big score in the MVHQ fam last night.
Yep. Big shout out to Mr. Scotco.
Yeah. I think he took 5th, and also a few places below that, like 12th and 23rd, I think, for a total of $1,000. So nice little day for him.
Yeah,
it was nice to see. It seemed like he was one that kind of opted to play the slate and played it well, and got a couple nice elite lineups in there, and it had a nice payday. So it was great to see. I think we've had a couple of those every week, and I know Scott's been grinding us. So big congrats to him.
Yeah, and his best one was the 3D plus a player from the other team. I think he chose Fields with the Washington defense, and we've talked about it, right? 3D is just gonna spike a couple of these weeks, maybe 3 or 4 of them, just because some of these island games, I don't know what the NFL is doing. I saw a stat like 1 touchdown within the last 45 drives for Thursday night football games. It's like, come on, like, give us better games.
And it's almost a common theme year to year now. You get a span of just really, really awful games, and you would think someone up in the office there would take a hint and maybe adjust this just a little bit, the scheduling. But JJ, any additional thoughts to some of these Thursday games?
Yeah, I mean, just with the last 2 Thursday games, we saw 3D either take it down or score really well within these lineups. So I think you'll see defenses for these island games probably be over-owned or worth higher. So it might be a good time to sell those. Just taking a look right now, I mean, Dallas D is at like $16, right? I mean, they're a good D too. $16 for a rare, and Philly D's at $11, and things that I don't think that defense will probably be a big part of those winning lineups there, but just something to keep track of for the coming weeks.
I think one thing, obviously before we dive into the marketplace stuff and our favorite stacks and plays, and there have been a couple newsworthy items that have come out, I think, since the last time recorded. One of which, I think the most notable, was DraftKings. Not necessarily their decision, right? There's some legalities involved, but players in Pennsylvania no longer, able to participate, which obviously throws a wrench in anyone that has made the upfront cost to play Reignmakers. It seems like they're trying to do some things to kind of rectify that situation, but just wanted to kind of touch on that. It is obviously a big deal, and something everyone in every state should be aware of, and just kind of want to get your guys' thoughts on that. JJ, did you want to lead there?
Yeah, I mean, you could always count on me to FUD my own bags, right? But how do you not know that that's coming? And I find it hard to believe that they had no inkling that Pennsylvania would ban this. So all the meantime, they took money from players in Pennsylvania, took money for their packs, let them enter contests and stuff, and all of a sudden just dropped the hammer and banned them. I can't see that as being possibly a good thing, and something that opened my eyes, like, wow, they could just drop something like this on the dime, and all of a sudden, you're left trying to sell your moments. They did, like you said, they did things to try to alleviate that. They waived marketplace fees for those players. They're going to give back, I think it was 20%, but come on, I mean, with the cost of depreciation of these players, I mean, you're talking about probably cents on the dollar, right, of what you paid for these players. Not something that I like to see from Reignmakers. How about you, Therec?
I mean, I am happy that they basically did everything they could to make it whole, but it makes me feel like this was sort of more thrown together quicker than they had actually planned. And I do think that they want Reignmakers to succeed, but it seems like it's going to be, we should expect somewhat of a bumpy road, at least for the rest of the season. I wouldn't be surprised to see other changes, them coming back on their word about certain things they talked about at the beginning of the season, because it seems more a passion project that they're just kind of like going along, and they have a good general idea, but they haven't worked out all the fine print, especially if they really hadn't talked to states that allow normal DraftKings and asked if this is going to be okay or not. So
Yeah, and just kind of to follow that up there, it's like you don't really know what their plan is, and I get that they're trying things, right? This waiver wire thing I think came out of left field as well. We knew that there'd be packs through the season, but I mean, look at the price of Jarvis Landry and Mac Hollins, right? Players included in that drop, and they just tanked for the elites. I think you saw like $60, and they auctioned them off on the same time. I mean, we're all NFT traders here as well, and you just don't wall the floor like that, and that's essentially what they did, running 30 auctions at the same time.
And I think that's what I'm seeing most of the pushback on is just kind of the surprise, like that people want to be or known ahead of time, because especially those that are playing the marketplace game, they don't want to see the cards that they've been collecting suddenly drop to zero value, because we saw in Top Shot, people were collecting cards they thought they were going to be worth a lot, and then they dropped 1 million of that player, and suddenly nobody cared that you had the first edition of that card because there was so many of them that they didn't need them. So people don't want the flashbacks of Top Shot to hit this too, where there's a lot of price changes that are outside your own control. Obviously, we know that there's going to be certain players that get injured, and we had Trey Lance, we had Sterling Shepard, and a couple others where their price just tanked because of injuries. We saw Mitch Trubisky's price tank as well, because he's now the backup. He's no longer the starter, but that's to be expected. It's the stuff that's not expected, like the bans in certain states, or the releasing of new cards without knowing ahead of time, that people are not wanting to see again, because we've seen that way too many times, especially in the NFT space, where you think that it's going to be one way, and then you get surprised and you lose a lot of money, and nobody likes losing money.
Yeah, and that's just a poor player experience, right?
Yeah.
Us being the players of Reignmakers, the product, and I know that you felt burned, particularly when you open packs, and you're excited, you get an elite prize pack, and all of a sudden you open it and you see an injured player or a
Trevor
backup
Siemian,
in there, right?
Yeah, Trevor Siemian, the backup to the Chicago Bears. I did not even know he was still in the league until I opened up a rare out of a pack of his, and then looked it up, because I swore he had retired. But yeah, when you open that up, it really sours you on wanting to open packs.
For sure.
Yeah, so just kind of wanted to ask you guys, like, what do you think? Should they remove those players from packs? I mean, it can't be a good thing, right, long term for the health of the product, because just destroys the user experience, like we talked about.
I think that now that they've added these new packs, where they're adding backup players to these packs and everything like that, they should remove them, because they can just stick them in these new packs that are coming out. If for some reason Justin Fields goes down and Trevor Siemian is now the starter, then they can stick them in those new packs. People can be getting them that way. But yeah, they're dead cards. Nobody wants to buy them. The only people that are buying these cards are for $1 to increase their collection score. And so when you get an elite pack after working really hard, you probably would have placed top 10 if you had put it in the money contest, and you get a card that's worth $5. It's really a letdown. And so I would like to see them at least go through and do some pruning, especially cards like Trey Lance, cards that there's never going to be a point where he suddenly pops up to be worth what he was at the start of the season. He's out for the season. From everything we know from DraftKings, they're going to basically be doing the bare minimum for past season cards. So I would like to see them remove those, either put them in special packs or hold on to them, just to increase the player experience. Nobody wants to buy a pack right now. It's really so negatively valued because everybody knows all these terrible cars are in it, that it just discourages anyone from buying packs. So I would like to see them raise the floor on the quality of the cards.
Yeah, it's an interesting argument for sure. Just because, like you said, it if they're having these waiver wire packs, why not just put them in there, or waiver wire auctions and sets like that? So, yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, they obviously need to do something, right? I mean, I think we're all kind of playing the waiting game here and hoping for some news to come out, and it's not an enviable position to be in, but at the end of the day, it is a new product and obviously one we're having fun playing with, but it's some of these answers that do need to be, or some of these questions do need to be answered here at some point, from a product development standpoint, and hopefully we get them along the way here. So something to look forward to at the very least. Removing season-long injured players from packs, I think, is something, if it's realistic, should be in play here, because I'm definitely a Trey Lance holder. I missed the exit, and really my option right now is I bought that off secondary, an elite one, early on, so feeling that burn. And my option right now is just to hang on and hope for some good news for some next year utility, so then that's my play there. So but hopefully we get some good news along the way here. I think the moral of the story here is degens and bricking floors is a tale as old as time, and will never change. So
Yep.
salute to that.
I actually sold some of my Trey Lances, so I was amazed somebody's buying them, but
The collector's coming.
Yeah. Got to factor that into the old tax lost harvest here at the end of at the end of the year. Anyway, moving on. All that being said, obviously we're still having a lot of fun playing week to week here. Let's touch on how we all did last week. Go through maybe some of your lineup strategies, and maybe even touch on a lineup or two that you had entered into some contests, maybe your highest scoring lineup, and kind of diagnose from that angle as well.
Okay, yeah. This past weekend was pretty good for me. I made about $2,000 in prizes, and then got a bunch of packs. Could have been better if AJ Brown wanted to do something, but unfortunately, Arizona just couldn't keep it competitive for most of the game, and just kind of killed the clock there at the end with the Eagles running the ball. What was it, like 11 times in a row? So let me go to that one and show it to you there. I placed it into the elite single entry cash game. So I had Hurts as my quarterback. There were pretty much one or two quarterbacks that I wanted to play that week. I know a lot of people were on Tom Brady, but I just didn't feel like the ceiling was there. I knew that they would run the ball if they got ahead, which is what they did. So, I put Hurts in this lineup. And I had Josh Allen in my other lineup, who was the other quarterback that I wanted. And I had Fournette with him there, just for the running reasons that I was speaking of. I put in Eckler and Chubb, so I did a kind of secondary stack there, just because I thought the game was going to play to the over, which it fortunately did for me. Eckler has just been getting insane amount of touches, living up to the a preseason hype that he was getting. And Chubb just, in a monster situation over there at Cleveland, where they're just running the ball and just giving it to him. And I thought I saw a sick stat on Twitter where I think he's like fourth in the league for rushing yards if you counted him rushing after contact as its own separate player, right? It's crazy how good and how talented he is, and how talented that line is over there. And I just they had some injuries on defense that made me think that there wasn't going to be a lot of pressure, and so that kind of worked out for me there. Unfortunately, like I said, AJ Brown didn't have to do much, but it was good enough for a 7th place. Therec, we spoke a lot about contest selection in the previous weeks, and it's really good just to enter these single entry cash games. I think that they're good at every single tier, just because the line to top 10 is much, much lower. Like, for top 10 in the single entry elite, it was 101, right? In the rare, it was all the way up to 120, which would have got you 4th place here in the elite contest. So just something to keep in mind. And for the big GPP, which was the $100,000 elite contest, the guy that in first place basically got the nuts, right? He was 0.3 points off. I think he had Tyler Lockett as opposed to one of the running backs that went off. And and Brees Hall, I think it was, or another player, and he just basically got 99.9% of the perfect lineup, right? So you're going to make more consistent money over time just playing these single entries and a lot of those player contests that we like to enter. So that was the um, that was my main cash lineup for the Sunday slate. And then here's the bankroll booster entry that I did. So I did 20 of these, basically the same lineup. So what I wanted to do was experiment. Basically, if I could buy players to sell into later island games and sell them for cost, a slight loss, or maybe even profit, like, and cash into these bankroll boosters, then I'll have, quite a bit of profit there. So I chose Jalen Hurts just because, it's a good upgrade option. I think going into today's showdown, Sunday showdown late night, you're going to have Jalen Hurts in every single lineup, right? And that's a core and rare for a core Jalen Hurts. So figured that was a good pickup. Ertz has been getting a lot of monster targets. And I was telling you guys last week and the week before, Titans just seem to be undervalued, right? And he did well enough there, and his price actually 2x from where I bought him, so that's a nice little sell there. And then Curtis Samuel had the Island game yesterday, sold him for a bit of a loss, and then Raheem Mostert is a bit up from where I got him. And Miami defense woefully underperformed, so they're down probably a couple bucks from where I bought them. And then the last lineup I wanted to share was the fourth place that I got. I tied for third, but got outkicked in terms of serial by a factor of 8. So just remember, in these showdowns, tie breaks is super important, right? Super important. But I ran Barkley at the captain because, as we all know, he's just getting a monster amount of touches and targets. Basically, offense runs through him, and if they were going to stay in the game, then they needed to do it through Barkley. I had Aaron Rodgers as well. That was another one of my locks. I was kind of 50-50 on Lazard and Cobb. Cobb would have got me the win, but ultimately went with Lazard because he just seems like the more explosive player. And then went with Jones as well, as I think the offense, if they're going to be doing much, it runs through Jones through the Green Bay side of things. So all in all, took a good payday and a couple of packs and opened a backup player in one of those packs. So it wasn't too good on the pack side, but the cash is nice, as you always point out, Therec, for why we enter some of these contests.
Mm-hmm.
Hell yeah. That's a great week right there, JJ. Congrats, man. Congrats on the hits.
Thank you. Nice
to see. Therec, did you have any lineups that you want to touch on?
Yeah, I do have one. So this is my best lineup performing in the 80K Fiat Frenzy. I'm pretty happy with most of it. Josh Allen, a double stack, went really well. Jeff Wilson was projected well, and he definitely went on, I think it's his highest game of the season. The mistake I made here was doing a bring back with a Pittsburgh player. I thought, from coming from a DFS background, I'm so used to needing that bring back because it reduces the amount of decisions you have to make in your lineup. However, especially with a team like Buffalo that does not lay off the gas no matter how far ahead, they're just going to keep throwing the ball. They're going to keep getting touchdowns. They're not going to be like Philadelphia was, where the moment they get a decent lead, they're going to slow it down and run the ball a ton. They just keep pouring on the points. In addition to that, Pittsburgh is a terrible offense. They're probably the bottom 5 offense in the league right now. And the ceiling for the players just aren't there. And unlike in regular DFS, where either for salary reasons, you can get a bring back to save some money, or you need to kind of aim for the games that just completely go off their back and forth touchdown. You're really looking for players that can give you a huge ceiling to take down these tournaments in Reignmakers. And looking back on it, Deontay Johnson, the best he was going to give me was maybe 20. That's probably his ceiling for right now. And he's just going to get beat out by people that chose to play other really high players. Like, he would get beaten out most of the time by AJ Brown. He would get beaten out most of the time by Marquise Brown or someone like that. Someone that's not like an absolute stud, but has clearly a higher ceiling. And it's something I'm kind of realizing, and I'm going to try and adjust my lineups this week and play less lineups, but play stronger lineups, because there really isn't such a thing as saving salary or paying down to make your team overall stronger. I've noticed it looking back at the 5 weeks. One of the highest projected quarterbacks always wins. You're not going to get a Marcus Mariota taking down all the tournaments because his ceiling just isn't high enough. It doesn't matter. Like, there's no salary savings with him. And so I'm trying to build my tournament lineups now with an idea of, can this player score top 5 in the position? Can this other player score top 5? Not can they get 5x the money that I paid. Not can they, like, oh, this $3 player, can he get me 15 points or whatever? But can this player, regardless of the price I paid for them, get me a score that's top 5, top 10 for their position? Because if they can't, I'm going to get beat out. There's not enough restrictions right now to force you to play players that won't put up those type of ceilings. If they come to that, then that's a different story. But right now, it's too easy to fit in lineups with players that can all get you games of 30 and above. So looking back on that, that's probably what I would change. I'd probably stick in Marquise Brown instead of Deontay Johnson, or just really anyone else. Some people played Amari Cooper. That's another one that's got a decent ceiling, although probably not him. Maybe I probably would have played Tyreek Hill, which would have been about the same result, but I would have felt better about it. But it's just a strategy change after looking back at this and looking at Reignmakers as a whole. I'm trying to adjust and kind of come up with teams that are cash focused, teams that have a Kirk Cousins, a Marcus Mariota, a quarterback that's not going to tank you, but just you're not going to win a tournament with it, but you can still build a team around them. So I'm aiming for that. That I know this isn't tournament winning team, but if I stick this in a cash contest, I'm almost guaranteed going to cash. So trying to build 2 tiers of teams this week based on that, rather than just throwing in a lineup with each quarterback card that I have and hoping that it does well. Because I'm starting to realize with the current restrictions that there's just never going to be a week where those low scoring quarterbacks that can win in regular DFS, because they're cheap, they're just never going to win in Reignmakers.
Yeah, I think those are all, proper learning points too here. I mean, and I think a big differentiating factor from traditional DFS and what we're doing here in Reignmakers, I think you touched on it, right? In traditional DFS, if you're playing GPP tournaments, right, obviously you want to stack and find game stack situations, obviously for the correlation, but that's also a great way to find value in your lineups as well. Here, we don't really have a value component, right? It's really, play the players that you have that you think will score most optimally. I think, in terms of Deontay, obviously I think the ceiling component there that you touched on is spot on. But at the same time, right, they had a quarterback change in Pickett, and maybe that unrealized ceiling wasn't quite there yet, so, a little bit of a shot in the dark. I think the process is spot on, and I think a good reflection point at the end of the week, at the end of the day as well. So all good things at the end of the day, I would say. Let's move into some of the marketplace movers here. I think moving forward, looking into this week and kind of seeing how things have progressed since last week's slate of games, and see if we can find some movers and some shakers in the marketplace.
All right, movers and shakers. Yeah, so injuries, continue to highlight the news board for the movers and shakers. We get Ramondre Stevenson popping up across the board, right? Kenneth Walker, just because we all know what happened, right? Injuries to Rashad Penny, injuries to Damian Harris, God. But it looks like Damian Harris is going to miss a few weeks, and Rashad Penny's going to miss the rest of the season, right? So massive pump there. James Conner also looks like he's going to miss this game. I don't know if he's going to miss multiple, but they give Benjamin the start there, so he's up as well, all the way up to, I think it was about $280 I saw last I checked. Otherwise, just the top games of the slate are popping up. Stephon Diggs, Travis Kelce, right, in that fantasy bonanza, and I think that is a good play. I personally will try to stack game for my lineups. Just stack them up, and have some secondary exposure to the Cardinals Seahawks game, which I think you can see. We'll start to see popping up later in the week as well. What I've been surprised at, though, and we spoke about this a little earlier last week, was I thought that the bye week might lead to some bigger dips and more buy opportunities on some of these players, but I'm surprised that none of them have dipped all that much. You have Derrick Henry maybe down $50 from 500 to 450. Good solid workload every single week. Josh Jacobs actually went up, from 350 to 400, probably because he people are seeing that he's getting such an increased workload. So I think people are just reacting to what they see finally, rather than playing the bye weeks and dumping there. Just because it'll be good for the rest of the season if you have a player like that who's going to get that amount of touches. Similarly, we saw Brees Hall pop up in core and an increase just because he had a monster game, getting, I want to say, almost like Le'Veon Bell style of treatment over there, with just targets and runs. The only thing is he's not getting runs on the one, right? So you can almost guarantee that if they get to the 1 yard line, Michael Carter is going to be the one running it in. So just has that going against him, and I think we see a lot of reactions to both injuries in this week's movers and shakers, and to people performing well as what games are going to be projected to score the highest. Now, market as a whole, I'm just going to run through rare, core, and elite. It looks like it's going down as we expected, right? It's kind of a slow bleed with kind of pumps into the NFL weekends for the Sunday slate. We always joke, like, maybe 5 minutes before the game, for the showdown slates, you're going to see a massive amount of buys and sells come in. So lots of last minute players there. So with rare, we see Kelsey, Higgins, Pittman, Brady, and Andrews go up in value, just because they're projected pretty well in the slate. And then core, you see kind of the same story, as well as elite, in terms of just the kind of slow bleed downwards from the floors.
One main thing I've been feeling is that the market's getting smarter now. I think it took a few weeks, but the movement, there's not nearly as many big swings outside of injuries on player prices. We're seeing a slow but steady decline, which is exactly what we're going to expect. We're going to see that, hopefully, well, not hopefully, but we're probably going to see that for the rest of the season, that week by week they drop 5-10% more, just due to the lower value as far as playing them. And people aren't reacting so severely on bye week players. They're not trying to sell all their cards to get other cards to play in the week and then rebuy later on. So at least for me, it feels like people are starting to get smarter about their holds, their buys, their sells, recognizing what's a 1 week flash, what's actually a long-term trend and stuff like that.
I couldn't have said it better myself. I mean, Benjamin is a good example of that, right? I think if it were closer to the start of the season, you might see him closer to 400, $500 probably. But people are realizing, it's probably just a loner, right? Maybe I'll win this one, and it better pay off. Otherwise, when James Conner comes back, that value is going to tank, right?
Right.
In addition to obviously the season kind of carrying on here, and the guaranteed prize pool bucket is shrinking week to week. But even in addition to that, player roles are starting to really formalize and take shape. And I think that plays into your point of the market's getting smarter, because the data coming in is more firmed up, right? And so the market can play off of that as well, obviously outside of the injuries and things of that, right? Just roles are becoming clearer and clearer, and values are reacting appropriately in one way or another. Still edges to be had, I think, week to week, obviously. And I think the speculation game, as JJ has touched on before, and I know Big Smizzle touches on as well, it's still a marketplace game, so finding those edges week to week, I think is still a big portion of what makes this so fun, what makes it so compelling, and at the end of the day is a great way to turn over some quick profit, so that being said, is there anyone you guys have had your eye on or that you've been tracking over the past couple weeks? Obviously, backup running back is a great spot to start the process. You have guys like Jeff Wilson who have been balling, but Eli Mitchell is right around the corner. So is that workload going to start chopping in half here because Eli is quite the runner himself, and things of that nature. Anyone that, and obviously as we've seen with Ramondre, how it impacts price movement when those injuries do occur. And you see some of the value spike. Are there any guys that you've seen or had your eye on that you're looking towards?
Yeah, so I had it pay off for me for both Zach Ertz and Raheem Mostert, just in terms of the cash lineup that I entered. So like I said, tight ends tend to be undervalued on this slate for good reason, right? Like their ceilings are capped, like Derek's mentioned. While they'll get you a good score in the cash style of contest, they're not going to serve that purpose too well in the higher ceiling games. So Zach Ertz is all the way. I guess I'm answering the opposite of your question. I think of is kind of overvalued now at $20 for the rare, maybe $5 for the core, about 150 for the elite, I think. So I'd probably sell into this game for that. And then for undervalued, I'm going back to my guy Raheem the Dream, man. He's just getting the touches. He's getting the touches.
I'm keeping right now a good eye on injured players that are going to be back in a week or two. I'm looking at Dak cards to pick up for Dallas. I think Dallas they've got an elite defense. Their offense, they're basically telling Cooper Rush not to lose the game. Don't try anything too hard and just game manage, and the defense will take care of the rest. Honestly, I think Cooper Rush has been wonderful for CeeDee Lamb because they finally figured out how to use CeeDee Lamb. But once Dak comes back, he's unquestionably better than Cooper Rush as a quarterback. People may not like what he does or the risks he takes, but as far as quarterback talent, he's better. So I'm keeping an eye on him. I'm kind of keeping an eye on Hopkins, but right now Hopkins is priced like people come back and basically expect him to take over the same type of role and be just as good as he was last year. And so I'm a little bit less iffy on that, but mostly players that are injured that are coming back in a week or two. Another one would be DeAndre Swift, where we know he's probably coming back after this bye week, and trying to target the guys that we know are going to potentially have huge seasons once they do come back from injury. And don't care so much about Treylon Burks right now, or players that have potential but they haven't really flashed yet. But those star players that are just kind of undervalued because you can't use them for 3 weeks, those are the ones that I'm really keeping an eye on.
If I could throw in another one that I've always talked about, I always talk about showdowns and how they give you extended value. Aaron Rodgers, man, he's gonna be in every single winning Green Bay showdown lineup. I'm promising you that. I'll say 5 out of 6. Okay, let's temper the expectations there. I'll give myself a little leeway, but Aaron Rodgers, I mean, it's good to probably enter into a cash lineup along with 4 other players until those showdown games, right? I don't think he has the ceiling for the main slate, but he's going to get you a couple packs probably, or maybe a couple bucks just from those bankroll boosters. So something that I've been doing is just entering him and the players that I kind of have exposure to for those future showdown slates into those bankroll booster contests.
And that is something, I think it's next showdown's week 8, but that is something that, as far as showdown cards go, you really got to think about is this team do these two teams have someone that needs to be locked in every showdown lineup? And should I be buying them now? Because clearly they're going to increase stars, quarterbacks especially. Quarterbacks, there's very few showdown lineups, even in a 3 defense. It's usually 3 defense and a quarterback that wins it. And so just trying to target those players that are, you're never going to win anything with them in a regular slate game. They just don't have the ceiling for it. You can use them in cash games and do it fine, but they're just not flashing like some of these stud players are. But in a showdown, they're going to be one of the best plays on the slate, and so you're definitely going to want them for that. It's just kind of like that tier 2 that can just win you a showdown, but people are undervaluing because main slate.
Also, I think in these situations, trust your gut a little bit too, right? And have some conviction in some of the decisions you do make. Obviously, we're doing the research and just kind of right, being lifelong fantasy players, one way or another, right? You get a feel for injury situations and depth charts and exactly who could be next up to bat should something go wrong. So it's always worth keeping a wandering eye on all that good stuff, and I think we're doing a great job with it. I think. There's obviously when you're talking about backup running backs and things like that, it gets a little thin, right? You start talking about the Josh Kellys of the world, where even his elite, I think right now is around $90-$100. If Eckler goes down, I mean that's a hell of an opportunity that opens up for someone like that. But you're kind of speculating on an injury happening at the end of the day. So injury. Yeah. Exactly. So it's obviously something that might never materialize. So you just have to be able to be realistic with your expectations there. So moving on into, I guess, the meat of the slate here. Just a quick look at maybe some of our favorite stacks going into this week. Players for the upcoming week that maybe have caught in our eye, just from a sheer maybe projection standpoint. And then that can kind of lead us right into the lineup challenge that we've been doing weekly and see maybe how some pieces fit there. Did you guys have any favorite stacks? Or, JJ, I know you touched on a couple of the games you're eyeing up. Did you have any other additional thoughts, or Therec, did you have any games or players you're eyeing up for this week specifically?
Yeah. So I'm going chalky for most of my lineups this week compared to most. I think that the Buffalo KC game is probably good chalk. Just want to have as much exposure to that as possible. I'm even putting in Clyde Edwards-Helaire, which I know Therec doesn't like him, but I think everyone in that game has the potential to score 20 points. Even a guy like Khalil Shakir, even though Isaiah McKenzie's back, so it lowers his prospects there. But just expecting a good old-fashioned shootout. Other games that I'm targeting, I'm a little down on the Arizona and the Seahawks game. I think that one might disappoint. Division rivals. They know each other better, and I think that it'll be more of a defensive battle than we probably expect. And maybe it plays to the over, so I have a little exposure in terms of secondary stacks. I think I have Marquise Brown and Lockett in most places, but I'm not trying to get too crazy with those stacks. I do like Baltimore a lot. I think that they are being slept on as usual, and when you sleep on Lamar, I don't think that's a good sign. He usually pops off for a lot. Their defense is playing better. We saw them pitch a really good defensive game against Cincinnati. So temper my expectations there on terms of the Giants side, but I still need a game for them to prove it. So I think that prove that the defense is good. So I think that Lamar is going to be throwing and running a lot on this Giants defense.
All those games, I've got teams lined up to go in that. Brady teams as well. I'm liking Brady stacks, double stacks this week. Probably not going to do a bring back in any of that. I think that they handle the Steelers pretty handedly, but I do think that they can put up some good scores, and hopefully the Steelers give them at least enough pressure that they don't just start running it the entire second half. And then I'm keeping an eye on Joe Burrow, the Bengals versus the Saints. But if T. Higgins doesn't play, I'm probably not going to play him. I just don't think he's going to have the ceiling with only Jamar Chase. I think Jamar Chase is a wonderful play regardless, but I'm probably not going to do any Joe Burrow stacks if T. Higgins is out, just because I don't think he can get to the ceiling I want for tournaments.
Yeah, I like that. I think there's two games that was definitely one of them that might, the game stacks or the game environment themselves might be hampered a little bit here by injuries. Obviously, with the T. Higgins one, the other one I was kind of eyeing at the start of the week was the Minnesota Miami game. Obviously, with the backup quarterback situation there in Miami, it's a little bit in flux. I don't know if I'm really going to have the cojones to go there on the Miami side, but it should, if everyone was healthy. I thought that one, at least the pieces fit pretty well, obviously. But we'll see how that one shakes out into Sunday. I'm pretty much touched on majority of the games. I think Green Bay and the Jets, that's going to be a little bit tougher, I think, for the Jets to really get moving. But if there are some points in that game scored on both sides, then it could be an interesting angle. But I think it's gonna be hard for the Jets to kind of really get things moving on that Green Bay defense. So more of a speculative play there than anything. Good stuff. Therec, did you want to lead us right into the lineup challenge here? This is a nice weekly segment that we've been doing. Obviously we started with I believe it was $50 we started with, and built a core lineup, in our first episode, and have kind of just been picking away at it here as the weeks have gone on. So a nice little update there, I think, is in order. And if we need to swap out any pieces, make any moves, see what the budget allows for.
So here's our team from we've been running a lineup challenge. Last week it scored 78.34 and was enough to get them in cash of $3 in the single entry.
Let's go.
So right now, 2 weeks in a row, we've been cashing. The only thing we definitely need to change this week is Devonta Smith is not on the main slate, so we're going to have to sub him out one way or the other. He's been doing well, and so I believe he should pump, since it's a Sunday evening game. People are going to want to be playing him in that showdown slate, and so I'm thinking probably $6 to $8 is what he should sell for. We got the 3. The one thing, so we'll need to swap him out. I'm thinking about 2 different paths we can take, and one is to just swap him 1-for-1 with someone else. I know Godwin is about $5-6 right now. There's a couple other decent receivers that are $5 or $6 right now, and just hold on to the $3 until next week, and then do a bigger upgrade next week if we cash again, or to go ahead and find a $10 receiver to replace them. But what do you think we should do, JJ?
Yeah, no, I like that. Gives us more flexibility. Marquise Brown, I think, has a showdown next week as well. Or it's either next week or the week after.
So let us decide what we want to do for this week. We got Trevor Lawrence that we got to play, and then Christian McCaffrey, who hopefully does pretty well even with PJ Walker as his quarterback. Then we have Christian Kirk.
Can't be any worse.
Yeah.
For old CMC there, you would think, you would hope.
And we also had Marquise Brown. I'm pretty sure it's that one. And so, yeah, we've got basically, let's say $11 to either pay up, or we can pay for a regular receiver. When I was looking at it, we'll see. Yeah, he's right now he's about $6. Chris Godwin, it was a one that I was looking at. There's a lot of other players that are equally cheap that I was thinking we could swap onto. To be perfectly honest, eventually I'd like to upgrade from Trevor Lawrence if we're going to keep throwing this in tournaments and get one of the more of the top tier quarterbacks. Not that Trevor Lawrence is bad, but I'd love to get a Hurts or a Josh Allen or something like that. Tyler Lockett's just about that same price as well. That's going into a solid game. If we wanted to go running back, we got Clyde Edwards-Helaire that we could to go into. Pittman's about that same price. Metcalf's about that same price. We honestly have a lot of options. We could upgrade to a Kamara for $9 if we wanted to, and hold on to the $3 after that.
Yeah, I kind of like that, just because. Well, hold on. Kamara and Marquise Brown are in the island slate next week. Well, that gives us good liquidity. But I was gonna say, if we do move up to like Josh Allen at quarterback, and Kamara is a good replacement for our running back, because we'll have to get rid of McCaffrey with the superstar. So I do like that. I think the situation is great. Great for Kamara, and ultimately, like, going off a running back superstar into a quarterback or a wide receiver, I think is a good long-term play for the cash. Yeah,
you could maybe even consider a budget superstar. You could probably sell Lawrence around that $9 mark right now, and Herbert's just a $4 or $5 jump up. Obviously not quite the ceiling of an Allen, so I think the price reflects that difference in ceiling as well. So, would be substantial upgrade either way, I think.
Yeah. That's a good one for future weeks because I think he's on the Monday slate this week.
Yeah,
he is. Yeah. Yep, good call. Yep, my bet on that.
No worries. But yeah, so for right now, I'm gonna say I lean personally towards a cheaper player, and then try to swap that Devontae Smith into the island game, and then upgrade. Hopefully, like next week or so.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a preference on running back or wide receiver for this week? Or I know obviously Lockett's going to be projecting really high. I know Godwin's projected pretty high. I think Kamara is one of the top running backs on this slate too. But I don't know if you have a preference of running back or wide receiver.
Yeah, hold on. Let me look at something real quick.
We can go Taysom Hill for $4. Other 40.
I mean, they do have that island game next week. I'm sure Taysom Hill will be in a ton of showdowns.
Everybody's going to try and play him.
Just because I actually like that play. I like it as a rental option. Just because he's getting the goal line work. Like, let's be real. Of course, it's he exploded for 37 last week and cost me my season-long matchup. So stupid.
Death taxes and Taysom Hill. The three great certainties in life.
Yeah.
But honestly, between all those players, I'd probably lean towards Lockett.
Lockett? Okay, we can do that.
Yeah, just because.
Frankly, he's cheaper than he should be right now. It's just really.
Yeah, and it's probably because of the Q tag, right?
Yeah.
I noticed the Q tag dips floors like crazy on this site.
Yeah, well, it does it for ownership and regular DFS too. You put the Q tab next to a name, and suddenly their ownership's way less than it should be.
Yeah,
because people don't pay attention to what it is. They just see, oh no, this guy might not play. Especially since the whole T. Higgins incident from last week, everybody's going to be so afraid of that Q tag.
Man, I got screwed. just call him out, man. Come on.
I know.
Come on.
All right. Well, let's do that. Let's go with Lockett. We have a little mini stack here with Marquise Brown and Tyler Lockett.
I like it. And
we hopefully that game goes off.
We have the couple bucks saved over, right?
Yeah. We'll have with selling, we'll have about $5 in the bank right now.
Beautiful.
Very nice.
I love that. I love that, and I think Christian Kirk is due for a nice target share increase off of last week at least. He's been a horse through the first couple of weeks, and then obviously I think last week took a little bit of a step back, but.
Hopefully they realize Marvin Jones is a geriatric wide receiver at this point. And
I think last week was more of a 1 week outlier than it is, a good forecast for his season moving forward. I'm super bullish on Christian Kirk here moving forward. So I like it.
Then these division matchups, man, they're just tricky. They're just
always
tricky.
Unpredictable. Yeah, exactly. Let's see if we can get at least another min cash there. Maybe I think we have some room for some upside there too. Maybe get a little bit higher than min cash, and hey, end of the day, we're cash and green week to week, and I think that's the point of it, right? It's just to kind of showcase that with a minimal investment, you can make a profitable. Well, I guess not technically profitable yet, but a winning lineup week to week, and the profits will kind of follow thereafter. So, excited to kind of see how that does this week. In the nature of keeping the pack rip alive, in the absence of the legend Jake and Bake, have a rare momentum pack here that, not quite as sexy as the Reignmaker pack rips of the weeks prior that Jake's been busting out, but some suspense nonetheless. I'll go ahead and share this screen here. So this is just your basic 2022 momentum rare pack. You can purchase them on the DraftKings marketplace for about $100, $99.99. Do we need to do a CSV download for this? We're pretty familiar with them.
I think we're good with this one.
Okay.
Just too many players in that one.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
we'll go ahead and do the slow roll on these. Cross your fingers, gentlemen. Let's go and knock on the table. Here we go.
Let's get an upgrade.
Whoop. Oh, those pack rip endorphins just flowing through me right now.
Oh, yeah. Let's get it.
All right. So no elite hit, but that's okay. That's okay. We'll roll with this.
Okay.
A Zamir White, maybe an injury away from some playtime.
Not that great.
Not great. Okay,
Not great.
superstar, but not, number 9. Number 9.
Number 9, we'll take that.
We'll
take that.
That's got a good showdown value for sure.
He won't be a superstar in 2 weeks, so
I love the optimism, JJ.
Higbee.
He's a great cash play right there. Like, honestly, Higbee's the most consistent cash tight end in the game right now.
Yeah.
He's been demanding those targets. That is for sure. Filling that Stafford narrative. Here we go. All right. The rare card. Here we go.
Keenan Allen.
Could be better, could be worse. We'll take it playable. I would say playable. Playable as the season goes on here. We'll see what happens.
If they stop telling us day to day, then we are good. Yeah, it's a great playable card.
one of these days, he will return, right?
Yeah. And he'll be a stud when he returns. It's Keenan Allen. He's a slot receiver. He doesn't need so
exactly. He probably hang on to this and try and sell it into when he does return for that perceived value pump. And, worst comes to worst, he's a key cog in what should be a very potent offense here moving forward. So, but yeah, we'll take it. Not the best pack, but did what needed to be done at the end of the day. Got the pack rip, juice is flowing. All right.
Let's go.
Great stuff. Sinking EV into his Reignmakers week after week. Here we go. All right. Did you guys have anything you want to finish up with here? Any talking points to close out the show as we head into what is now week 6 of the NFL season? Kind of crazy to think about.
Just a reminder, if you're new watching this, when you're investing, assume that every card you're purchasing is going to be worth $1, if that, at the end of the season. Don't go into it thinking that the value is going to hold up. These cards are going to lose value every week as you play them. And if you go in with the mindset that you're building specific teams, you're building specific players, or rather than making a investment in the card itself, you're going to be able to play this game in a way that doesn't tilt you nearly as much. But if you're going in it with a bunch of pack rips, hoping that you get a legendary card that's going to be worth thousands in 6 months, then you're going to be freaking out in 3 weeks when it drops 20% in price. So understand the way this game is played, understand what you are getting into when you're purchasing these cards so that you don't make some bad investments that you're regretting in a few weeks.
Great point. Great shout.
I love that. And if you're like me and you're prone to owning injury-prone players, averaging 2 to 3 a week, just remember, I mean, you got to be on the ball, watching the games, watching the market, right? As soon as a player goes down, you scoop their backup, and you'll be protected somewhat, or even another backup from a different team, right? You'll make a good amount of profit that way. Probably the most consistent profits with Reignmakers. But yeah, just remember, it is a brutal sport, and these athletes put their bodies and even lives on the line sometimes. And just keep in mind that your investment can go to zero very fast.
Mm-hmm.
Very duly noted, gentlemen. Yeah, I think realistic expectations, whether it's in Reignmakers or any other risk asset, right, is always something to be at the forefront of our minds. 100%. Very, very thorough insights and talking points as always, gentlemen. For those of you watching, thank you very much for joining us on another episode of Make It Rain. You can catch us on Twitter at Make It Rain MVHQ. That is at Make It Rain MVHQ. We're posting updates and show teasers and all that good stuff from that socials account. Obviously, our main account at Metaverse_HQ, the mothership of where all this magic is being made. You can follow updates there as well. Other than that, a good luck to everyone watching in this upcoming Week 6 slate, and hopefully we make it rain.
Yeah.
Ciao, everyone.
Yeah.
Forgot like and subscribe, man, and comment your best lineup below. Show us how you did.
Cut.
Yeah.
Cut. Post-production. Make sure you like and subscribe below. Comment, emoji, GIF, whatever you got.
Tell us how much you hate Matt Rule.
Yeah.